Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. And you are going to see a very familiar guest, but I could not find an interview where Ty and I went deep into Ty's story. We may have done it. Maybe I just can't find it in my nearly 5,000 videos. But Ty was gracious enough to give us some time this Sunday morning to say, hey, I'd love to tell my story. So how you doing, Ty?
I'm doing awesome, Michael. It's always great to be with you. And I just love all the content, all the value, anything you're doing, I want to be a part of. So thank you for having me.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate that. Our weekly wrap ups, our mastermind sessions, all of these things are great. And I was looking through my inventory the other day and I texted you. I'm like, Ty, have we ever introduced Ty to my channel? Oh, yeah, we did that. And I'm like, I can't find it. So let's do that here. So Ty, step back, pretend like we haven't had a year of conversations. Who is Ty? What do you do? Where you at in this world? And then we'll kind of give your history.
Yeah, I love it. So my name is Ty. Last name is Leon Guerrero. I always just go by Ty LG, right? Nice and short. I have the domain tylg.com. That's where I JV with people, do deals. I basically, it's funny. I was talking with a friend the other day, and I realized, like, as an adult, the only thing I've ever done is real estate, as a young adult to forward. So I'm very blessed, very privileged to be in this industry and be surrounded by great people like you, Michael. So thank you.
And you're in the Bay Area.
I am. I'm in the Bay Area. I grew up in Vallejo, California. A lot of people know that. It's about 15 miles south of Napa, halfway between San Francisco, Sacramento, if you don't know where that is. I've basically lived in the East Bay, Walnut Creek, Contra Costa County, and then in Solano County, pretty much my whole life. I've always been here in the Bay. So
yeah. And you were definitely a real estate entrepreneur. You were doing big things, but it doesn't start there, right? You have the experience. You've been through many, many markets, as we've talked about in our weekly updates. But let's give everybody a taste of who was Ty. When does this start? Were you in your teens, early 20s? When did you kind of get that first itch for real estate investing?
It's funny. There's two or three things, and I was thinking about this morning, getting ready. Two or three real critical impact points as a young man. So I can remember as a kid, I can remember my Uncle Phil. My Uncle Phil just passed away here. Rest in peace. I love my Uncle Phil. I remember him as a kid. I remember he would live in a house for 2 years. He'd rent it out, and then he'd keep that house, put tenants in there. Then he bought another house. Then he did that. I watched him do that 3 times in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And I just remember that. I'm like, what's he doing? And we never talked about it.
Right.
But, my Uncle Phil actually had a lot of impact on me, and watching him do that in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Fast forward kind of, as a kid, I'm hanging out with a friend of mine. It's like after a little league baseball game. Hey, come home with us. We're going to barbecue, come home with me and our family. And his dad was not home. They had a nanny, and she was cooking meals for us and waiting on us hand and foot, just waiting on us. And I'm like, and then his dad comes home, and his dad's got a brand new Cadillac. And, and I'm talking to the dad at dinner. I'm like, what do you do? What do you, and he goes, oh, I'm a real estate appraiser. And I go, oh, what is that? And he goes, well, he explains what an appraiser does.
I'm like, you're how old? How old are you right now?
I'm 11 years old.
Wow. Okay. Got it.
I'm 11 years old. And this is early 80s. And they've got the big screen TV. They got
all the toys.
They got motorcycles. They got everything. And I'm like, and then he goes, but that's not really where I make my money. I make my money in buying rentals. So the Catlett family. And I was super impressed. I was like, what? How does
that work?
Yeah. So I'm connecting the dots, and then kind of fast forward. This is a cool, the first real estate broker I ever went to work for, I would see him every day after high school. I'd be walking home when I was, 14, 15 years old. And I'd see this guy, Malcolm Tip Realty. I'd see him driving, and every day he'd have a different car. One day it'd be a Mercedes. One day a Rolls Royce, one day a Cadillac, right?
Wow.
And so I'm like, who is this guy?
Could you imagine his social media feed if we had Instagram back then?
Yeah.
He was a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, he was basically like Thatch. He was like Thatch, but obviously an older gentleman, but like Thatch Nguyen, our friend.
You
And
got some toys, yeah.
yeah, super impressive. So I'm asking like in the neighborhood, who is this guy? Like, and they're like, oh, that's Malcolm Tip. He's a real estate broker. He's a hard money lend. I didn't know what that was. And he owns a bunch of rental property. So
Amazing.
as a young man, I'm noticing this. And so that's kind of how my love and passion started for real estate. So
that's amazing. So, okay. So you're getting a little take. I'm trying to think back to when I was 11, 12, 13. There was none of that was going on, or if it was going on, I wasn't seeing it. So that is amazing to have those little seeds that pop up later in life, right? That become something. So, all right. So you're in the Bay Area, you're seeing this. The other story I want to make sure we mention here is you talk about, I think it was your parents. They did a deal, I don't know, subject to or creative financing. And that kind of is like, what is that? And that was again when interest rates were like nutty, right?
Right. It was like same kind of all in that same. So yeah, all in that same vein. I'm noticing my folks are out looking for a house. They're like, I can remember going to real estate offices, looking through the MLS books, which were like catalogs.
Yeah. Physical books. This is how old we are.
Yeah. Right. It was like literally like a catalog, a black and white catalog, an MLS book. And I can remember my folks, like we found this house. It was in a better neighborhood, the whole thing, better school district, all of that. And I can remember though, my folks explaining them, they're like, oh, this is a great deal. And they overpaid for the house a little bit. I feel like there was probably a little bit of a bidding war and they overpaid. And I was trying to understand, why would you pay $81,000 for a $79,000 house or something? Right. Something kind of like that was the numbers. And they were explaining to me, they were going, no, you don't understand. This has a 8% interest rate or 8.9, whatever interest rate. Yeah. And we're going to basically give the owner cash and then take over the loan. Nice. So we get that financing, that 8.5 or 8.9, whatever it was, percent finance. And they go, and I go, well, what does that mean? And they go, well, interest rates right now are, 13, 14, 15%. I'm like, what? How? I'm like, what? 15% interest.
Yeah.
So anyway, total mind blower. And of course that house, like almost 2.5, it literally doubles quickly within a couple of years. And
right.
Anyway, you know the story. So
yeah, it's amazing to see again, as individuals who've both been in the Bay Area for forever. Right. We've seen some pretty, when you have the Bay Area, then you have these different 80s and 70s and 90s, all these things. It's amazing what can happen when you get in. So, all right. So you graduate high school, I'm guessing. Do you go to college? I don't know.
I dabble. And it was funny because you and I are of the same age. Back today, you hear it's pretty popular that, look, you don't have to go to college to be successful. Be careful, student debt. I think today's student knows it's a choice.
Yep. I hope so. It's definitely a choice. Yes.
Definitely a choice. Of our era, it was like, if you didn't go to, if you wanted to be somebody, you better go to college.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be, a laborer, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm dabbling going to college and I've got a little landscape business. I'm going to JC. I'm doing all my.
I did that too. Junior college. I did that.
Yeah. Junior college. Right. So getting all the general ed stuff knocked out and stuff so I can qualify and transfer it to, a Cal State. And
I did that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, but I was bored, man. I hated it.
You're an entrepreneur, right? I mean, we didn't know that was a word that Gary Vee obviously makes popular today, but, and I've already admitted 100 times, I'm not an entrepreneur, right? I'm a great employee. I'm a decent investor, but I'm not an entrepreneur, right? You are an entrepreneur, had a little landscape business coming out of high school. That's amazing. I actually did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was cool because too, this was an interesting thing. So I'm dabbling with college. I'm not liking it, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And so then I'm like, and I've been saving money. This was interesting too, is I figured out early, like, hey, save money, mattress money, right? I would cash in a shoe box underneath my bed, whatever. Like I was always pretty thrifty as a young guy. And so I'm doing a yard for this guy and he's like 22, 23, 24 years old, this guy named Jeff. And he has like beautiful truck, like a Corvette, beautiful home, all this. And I'm like, dude, you're like 4 or 5 years older than me, 3 or 4 years older than me. What do you do?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, my day job is construction. He goes, but I've been buying rental property. And I'm like, what?
Again, rentals. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it was Jeff, because then Jeff goes like, hey, he goes, come into my house. This is how generous this guy's, so successful. I just barely meet him. And he's like, no, come into my house. And we're in his beautiful home, and we're in his office, and he's like, see this book? You got to get this book. And it was Robert Allen, Nothing Down for the 90s.
I remember
and
that
then
book.
Tony Robbins.
Ah.
And then it was the Tony Robbins book. So he said, read these 2 books. And I'm like, okay, go to the bookstore, get the books. And I'm like, I'm hooked. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a rental. Yeah.
Yeah. Robert G. Allen. Him and Carlton Sheets, right? They're the OGs of creative financing, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. Robert Allen and Carlton Sheets. So
I remember looking for his infomercial, right? Carlton Sheets. It just felt authentic, right? It wasn't all that flash. There were some other people coming out with, girls on a boat and all that stuff. It was like that always felt off to me. But Carlton Sheet just walking around talking, I'm like, oh, I get this guy. I like this guy.
Yeah. It was interesting too in the 80s, because that whole world kind of was just starting, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm still doing the landscape. I'm still doing the junior college thing, and I buy a rental. So I literally, with my mattress money.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us about the first deal. What was it? Was it a house, a condo? What was it?
It was a house, and it was in it was total like C+ neighborhood, older neighborhood, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, on Henry Street in Vallejo.
Good for you. You remember the street. That's awesome.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll never forget Norris Drive. Yeah, exactly. For the same reason.
Right. But
yeah,
it's special. So
ask me number 2. I have no idea. Number 1.
Right.
I got
it. Right. It's funny. Yeah. So I buy this deal. And at that time, I'm looking at comps, or, I didn't even know I was looking at comps. I'm just driving around. Everything's 110, 115,000. This house is a fixer. And I pick it up at like 102. And I think I'm like a genius. Oh man, I got a $110,000 house for 102.
Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, how old are you right now? You're like 22, 23?
Like 21.
Okay. 20. Oh man, that's awesome. 21. That's awesome. Okay. Do you remember how you got was it just like a straight up bank loan, or?
Yeah, it was actually a World Savings. And I don't know if people remember World Savings, but World Savings had, the QQ. So it was like stated income, but it was not the negligent stated income that they used to have, like
later in life.
2009.
Yeah.
Not the 2009 stated income, but this was the original 11th district cost of funds.
Oh, okay.
It was Washington Mutual and basically like World Savings. They did this loan, and it was actually a very nice loan. It was a good, steady loan. And I want to say I put down, I don't remember, maybe 20%. I don't remember, but I had mattress money. So, I'm excited. I'm getting in the game. So,
yeah. And now you're, again, right, I can just see you're 21 years old. You have these influences as soon as 11 years old. You got this guy that says, read Tony Robbins, Robert G. Allen. And here's the deal, dude. You were already living below your means, i.e. mattress money, right? That was the seed that became the rental. But 2, you took action. This drives me crazy, right? We do this daily show. You and I talk weekly. I have multimillionaires 6 days a week. And where's the action, right? First action for you. You go in the house, the guy says, go get these books. You drive to the freaking bookstore, buy the books.
Yep.
Then I know for sure you read the books, because buying them does nothing. Reading them changes your mindset. Then you took action. You're doing what we would call today driving for dollars, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be real, right? Put this work in the 80s or the 90s to today, and then you get a deal done. That's just, I'm so happy for you. So what happens? Was it Henry Street? Was that what it was?
Yeah, Henry Street. Yep.
So how long did you hold it? I'm just curious.
A good amount of time, man. I 1031 exchanged it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think I 1031 it I'm trying to remember. I think I 1031'd it into like a 10 unit like a 10 unit apartment building. It was a package with a couple of houses into an apartment. But I remember like I ended up exiting out of Henry Street at like, this is an interesting thing. So that Henry Street, I buy that. I'm a landscaper. I buy it for 102. I then the following year, I get licensed and start working full time as a real estate agent. And I'm doing short sales in the neighborhood for 75 and 80.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this is the interesting thing about that is that, I literally 102, I'm selling stuff in the neighborhood, even same floor plan, maybe a little nicer than mine at 75, 80. And I'm a little nervous. And then I go to my mentor. So I go to, my mentor, Malcolm Tipp at the time. That was the guy with, the broker with all the great cars. So I go to Malcolm and I'm like, hey, am I in trouble? I'm underwater? I mean, I'm like break even. I'm still cash flowing. Yeah. And he's like, no, he goes, just write this out. And he goes and buy some more. Keep buying.
Keep going. Yes.
Yeah. So it ended up that I held that and I ended up exchanging. I want to say I sold it somewhere just short of 400,000, something like that. But
do you actually remember the address?
Yeah, it's 688.
I'm going to look it up in Zillow because I'm just curious what it would be worth today. Cause I'm sick like that.
Look it up. I'm going to guess it's probably mid to high fours.
And what city is it in?
Vallejo, California, 94591.
There it is. So what do you think it's worth today? Oh, look at that house. What do you think it's
475?
Pretty good guess. 460. Again, this is Zillow. It goes from 415 to 500. Yeah. It's a 3-2 now, 942 square feet. Nice little house right on the corner. It's currently gray. Let's see how far back this goes. Because sometimes the comparable sales don't go far back enough. So did you sell it in like 2005 maybe?
Yeah, 4 or 5, 6, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, so 2005.
Like 380.
Yeah, so the things that I see on July 22nd, 2005, it sold for 320, and then it sold again 5 months later for 440. And then then it's just like Norris Drive. It gets foreclosed and sold at 92K.
Write that down. Yeah.
Because Norris Drive, right? I buy 107, sell for 265, foreclosed and sold at 75. So
yeah. So I'm guessing the 320. What year was the 320? That's probably me then.
05.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But somebody flipped it 5 months later for 440. That was definitely into the teeth of bad loans.
For sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow, small world. Okay. So you get your first deal, you hold it for over a decade, you do a 1031. We must not have talked about this because it is amazing how similar our stories are. I 1031 Norris Drive, not into a 10 unit, but into a 5 unit that I actually still own today. Just amazing. So, all right. So you get your so you buy a rental, the rental, you're not an agent yet. After you buy the rental, you become an agent. Tell me about your first year, right? Sounds like you were starting to list or be an agent into the teeth of a real estate recession, hence the short sales.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible market because two things. One is I didn't know any better.
Yeah, exactly. You're too young to know.
Right. I didn't know any better. I was naive. And not only that, but I was actually mentored by, from Jump Ball as a brand new guy, I was a part of Mike Ferry, the Mike Ferry organization.
Oh, I know Mike, or I know his dad.
Yeah. So,
or no, I know his son, I guess. Is it Mike's the dad, right? Tom's the son?
Correct.
Yeah. So I know I've interviewed Tom. He's a nice guy.
Oh, super nice. Super, super smart. Him and Matthew, his brother, they're incredible. And so I literally just jumped in like.
So you were getting educated, part of masterminds early.
So invested in myself, man. I would buy back then what you could buy on audio today for $10, the Audible, like I would pay $200-$300 for courses off of Nightingale Conant.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I always, after buying those 2 books, I was all in on self-investment. So a part of Mike Ferry from day one, I'm door knocking, I'm cold calling, and I'm doing it in a great market because there's tons of expired listings, tons of for sale by owners. There's short sales. Confidence goes a long way. Energy goes a long way. People want to, because at least they feel like they'll hustle for them. And man, I just came in and, I came in and I had a lot of success. So I just rolled with the success of the agent. And then I was just picking up like a 1Z, 2Z, find a deal here and there, pick it up.
But you never
and,
stopped.
Same thing, world savings.
You kept going.
Well, I love too, because I love your story and your whole, your theme, right? One rental at a time.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was one, then it was two, then it was three, then, and it just kept going. And I just kept buying houses and, just one here, one there. Drove a 7-year-old Toyota Camry, and lived at home.
Yeah. So you were, that's amazing. So you're investing in yourself. You're living below your means, mattress money. You don't start flexing because I'm guessing if you're successful in real estate in the 80s, you may not have been making 6 figures, but again, money back then is not like money today. You were probably making 40, 50K living at home. That's crazy.
Yeah. I was making good money and I was living at home and, and just living below my means and just, not crazy. I mean, I still go out for dinners and treat my family and things like that, but, just being smart and very focused on, okay, I'm going to build something special with, the sales side and then the investing side.
Yeah. And again, I'm going back to the 11-year-old and the guy that invites you in the house. These are people this is just who you are. Your ability to attract, I'll call them mentors. I don't know what else to call them, but influencers, maybe not actually mentors, but influencers. And you're like, you don't overthink it. You're like, they said buy rentals. I'm going to buy rentals, right? You're not trying to outsmart the process and shortcut it. You're just willing to do the work, keep moving forward and get in the game. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'll share something too, because I think this will inspire some of the listeners. So I was pretty much raised by my grandmother. And so like pretty much I would call it a fatherless home. And I don't feel sorry for myself or anything crazy like that. But it was interesting that I think because, I didn't have a dad in the home. So when I met like, a baseball coach or, I met somebody, or an uncle and he was sharing something with me, I paid attention. So I was, hungry to learn and hungry to be mentored. And I think there was something there, I think, about being hungry to, have influence and have people, when people were sharing with me, I wasn't taking it for granted. I was like taking like, okay, I better listen. This guy's giving me some advice. He's investing in me or sharing with me. I should really try this on or like think about this. So cool. I think that really helped a lot kind of as an early, like, why was I so open to hear coaching?
That's awesome. So, that's awesome. Well, shout out grandma. She did a good job.
Yeah.
Good job, grandma.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So, you're doing onesie, twosie, you're an agent, you're killing it. You're growing, you're investing in yourself. Actually, let's talk about this. So when was the first time you go to a Tony Robbins event? And I asked that because you helped me get to my first, it was virtual, but still first Tony Robbins experience. When did you go to your first live Tony Robbins event? I'm just curious.
I got licensed in 94. So I would say maybe 95, 96.
All right. And talk about how Tony Robbins and his energy and the way he kind of puts it out there has helped you or changed you or just keeps you going.
It was cool because Tony, the sky's the limit. The past doesn't equal the future. That was a big thing, doesn't matter what's happened in the past doesn't equal the future. Not only that, but being able to get yourself kind of really peak state and focused. Mm-hmm. So, just really using those tools, man. And back then when I went to go see Tony, he was like on the West Coast, like every other month.
Yeah.
So he was touring a lot more.
It was a different game, right? Yeah. And he was a younger man, obviously 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Yeah. And he was in so it would be at hotel, ballrooms and conference rooms. And so like I would see him in San Francisco as an example, or, down in Burlingame,
Yeah.
and then maybe go see him fly down to LA and see him 2 months later.
Oh, wow.
Or fly to Denver, Colorado and see him, 3 months later. So I'd probably see Tony between seeing Tony and then Mike Ferry and Tom Ferry and Matthew Ferry. I mean, it was like every probably 8 to 12 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Every 8 to 10 weeks, I was at a live event, even if I just went for one day, just to get, to learn. So.
Yeah. And I call that charging the battery. I don't know what else to call it, but everybody needs that thing to kind of keep you going, right? Because real estate's a hard business. Being an agent's a hard business. Life is hard. You just need to get around more and more positive people that keep you going that way instead of going backwards.
100%. 100%.
Okay. So let's talk about your investing in your business. So you get started, huge milestone, start adding onesie, twosie rentals. When's there kind of like an inflection point in the business where you're like, wow, this is really paying off. This 5, 7, 8 years has really led to, and you're like, wow, we got somewhere.
Yeah, I love that. So Tony Robbins has a great quote too. He says, we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in a decade.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you say that, it was literally put my head down, work, and it was about 6 or 7 years. And so let's call it 99, 2000. I kind of like wake up and I'm like, man, I got a lot of really good stuff. I got a nice portfolio of properties. I got a great real estate brokerage. I'm making money. I'm buying, I'm flipping. Everything's going really well. All that hard work and the focus and dedication is really paying off. And all of a sudden now I had freedom. Like, I could, buy deals at will. I was never like trying to figure out how am I going to get the down payments. Could buy deals at will, flipping, like just everything's going incredibly well. And I wake up and I'm like, okay, now I can go out and, I've got the income, I've got the portfolio. Now it's like, okay, now I can go buy a few toys and things and, and I wouldn't say splurge, but definitely probably, splurge a little bit.
Yeah, splurge. Let's not hide it. You splurge a little bit. That's okay. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. As I shared my first book, right? We did the same thing. And I remember when we got to 80 units and all via 1031 exchanges, right? We had 8 and then we went to 80 over about a year. I remember looking up like 6 or 9 months after we got there, I was like, something is different. Because when you have 8 homes, like one big repair messes it up for a couple of months, right?
Right.
But you have 80 units and now you've got rents where they should have been before. It's like, I remember, I think it was a roof. Like I had to replace a roof, which is like, I don't know, 8, 12, maybe 15 grand. I don't remember. But I remember going, I didn't have to write a check for that. Did you write a check for that, Olivia? No. That came out of cash flow? Yeah. I'm like, huh. That's different. I remember that visit. I don't think I've ever talked about that. But I remember the first time that happened. It was like, wow. Cash flow paid for that roof? That was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's a good feeling, man.
That's a good feeling. Yeah. So, man, you've done some amazing stuff. Where do you want to take this next? Are there other big inflection points? Maybe tell me about what you were doing before the crash. Like, let's talk about the nonsense of 05, 06.
Yeah. So that's good. That actually is the next chapter. And it's good because, everything's going incredibly well. And here's where I made some mistakes.
Okay.
And these are the lessons, because this is important to share with everybody, right? So with the audience, right? So everything's going well. I've worked hard. You've worked hard. It's been 6, 7 years. You've got a portfolio. Everything's going well. And here's what happened is that now, if you can imagine, I'm in my early 30s.
Yeah.
I'm having incredible success.
Yeah.
I've invested in myself so much so. I mean, I'm a pretty smart guy, but here's the problem: ego.
Yeah.
Started thinking like basically too, from the run from, let's call it 2001, 9/11. I would relate 9/11 a lot to COVID, the way that, you had this big interruption, a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Interest rates are low. You know,
Yeah.
they started dropping rates after 2001, after 9/11, trying to stimulate the economy.
Mhm.
And so, you know, what happened to real estate? Real estate just took off, continued to take off like a rocket ship
Yeah.
from 2001 to 2006.
Mhm.
Well,
You
in
could do
my
no
view,
wrong. You could do no wrong.
exactly, until you do, until
Until,
you do. And
until the
so,
market goes whack.
well, this is the part too. This is probably the biggest lesson for the audience is that you really want to stay in your lane. You want to get a core expertise. And I love, like, even we did it the other last week where you're talking about the buy box.
Yeah.
And this is from you, Michael. Like, you were talking about Fresno, this zip code, this type of house. Like, you know what your buy box is.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
I know what my buy box is.
Yeah.
What I was good at was single family houses, all in neighborhoods that I'm very familiar with, all, you know, kind of 3-bedroom, 2-bath, homogeneous neighborhoods built from 1950 to 1980, 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, like all of that. I'm an expert. Like, I know that stuff like the back of my hand. I can do those deals day in and day out. Well, in my group of friends, there's a couple of guys that are like, hey, I'm going to start developing. I'm buying 500 acres in Kingman, Arizona. The guy's never lived in Arizona. The guy doesn't, you know, with all due respect, doesn't know a lot about Arizona, doesn't know about developing.
Yeah.
Has flipped houses, has done maybe some infill in his local community. And so all of a sudden, you know, I'm like thinking, well, I got to do something like that. I got to do some development. It's like a graduation. And the thing is because everything came so natural in single family housing and regular one rental at a time type investing, that it all came so natural and normal and had a lot of success. I'm like, oh, well, now I'm going to become a developer. Right. And so that was where I made the mistake. And here's what I did is I refinanced a lot of properties, pulled equity, rolled them into dirt projects, entitlement deals on my own. The other mistake I made was rather than go and say, okay, this guy's developing, he's successful, he's been doing this for 10 or 15 or 20 years. Let's partner on a deal. Or, hey, what do you think of this deal? Let's do it together. I found this. What do you think? Let's do it together. I'm like, no, everything's going to be me. And what happened was, instead of staying in my lane, I got out over my skis. And so I got into a bunch of some personal guarantees and some, you know, you know the rest, right? If you were developing from 06 to 08, you definitely lost some money. So
you got hurt.
One of those guys.
Yeah, you got hurt. All right. So then 08 comes again. For me, it was 2010. I mean, 2010. Let me say it this way. I hope 2010 is the best year I ever have buying deals, because they were selling less than land value because everybody was scared. Now, if it happens again, I'll buy a lot, but I saw so much pain and carnage in 2010. But, you know, in order to have a rebound, you got to have a bottom. And in my market, it was 2010. Do you remember kind of like it's finally getting a little bit better? I mean, do you remember kind of the return? It's been about a decade, I guess.
It also about 2010. Yeah, okay. I would agree with you that, and probably the darkest year was 08. 08, yeah. Because like, just, it was interesting too, that being able to adapt. So in 07, things were slowing down. In 08, everything around me was like all the single family housing,
everything's on fire.
Everything's on fire. Everything's kind of, you know, on fire. And then not only that, I've taken my focus. I'm trying to fix problems. So I'm not doing brokerage at the level I was. Plus brokerage had slowed down tremendously. So, you know, commission income's down, revenue's down. I'm trying to fix all these projects that can't be fixed.
There's only one way. Let them go.
Yeah. And so, I lost a lot of property. But then the interesting thing, though, is that I love your story that you actually, the way you pivoted, that you said, okay, I'm going to 1031 exchange and buy some units. And I kind of started that. Okay. But then instead, what I did is I said, no, I'm going to refinance a bunch of stuff. I put bad loans on stuff.
Yeah. That lending was so, I don't know. It was so tasty. It was just, I was lucky. My brain would not let me do one of those loans. I'm like, no, can't do that. Yeah,
Well,
lucky.
your playbook was the right playbook. So I'm refinancing, pulling cash, putting bad loans on stuff to buy land and buy
Yeah.
entitlement deals that will never make it to the finish line.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand, you were 1031 exchanging. And so that's, that I think was a big pivotal moment. In 2008, everything's just melting down around me. And I'm going, you know what? I've got to pivot. I've got to do something else. And I got into the REO world. I was working with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. And that's really where I got my rebound, is I was getting in there, learning that book of business, doing the brokerage, and basically rebuilding out. So I'd say 2010, 11, 12, we're okay, let's stabilize and let's get back going. So
yeah, and then from there, once you kind of rebuild the foundation, it's been a good kind of decade run. Have you always been, other than your, kind of move out to entitlement deals, have you always been a Bay Area investor, or you have out of state stuff?
No, not really. I mean, I had bought some stuff in Texas. I explored that, but I learned pretty quick that you can't really scale. And it's like, I don't want to fly to Texas every month or just build a team. So
too hard. Yeah.
For me in the Bay Area, very similar to you is that being in the Bay Area, I'm on the outskirts in the East Bay. So Solano, Contra Costa County.
You find your area and you just go.
Yeah. And so I'll do deals here locally, but then also too, I like Sacramento. I like the Central Valley, Stanislaus, Stockton. I'm in Fresno. I like Fresno. I'm just starting to, get into Fresno. So I like Fresno, like you, following your lead. So, but I like the Central Valley. I really do.
Me too. So I'm curious, when do you bump into Thatch? Thatch is such an amazing guy. When do you bump into Thatch the first time?
That's early, 95, 96.
So he's still door knocking. It's early Thatch. I think he said he door knocked 100 doors a day or something like that.
Yeah. That was like if you were one of the guys, if you were really in it to win it in that community. So Thatch and I were in a mastermind called M3.
Okay.
And that's where we really got to know each other. And so that was Mike's Millionaire Mastermind, is the
M3. Got it. Mike's Millionaire Mastermind. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And it was led by Tom, his son, and then Mike, of course, and Matthew. And we just literally in that group, I want to say that group started in late 90s, but I had known Thatch from 95, 96, and he and I just hit it off from day one, and always talking about buying houses, door knocking. Even then we were really clear on our buy box, right? It's an ugly house. It's the ugly house in a C or B neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We were always really clear on that. Door knocking those. Thatch still door knocks. Tries for dollars and does that as well. I do that more with cold calling myself with my team. But Thatch is amazing. And Thatch, all along this journey that I just described, he's literally been there from, basically the second inning. Yeah. Like literally from like 95, 96, he and I've been fast friends. So
nice. Very cool. Well, I want to talk about what you're doing now, because you are leading the next generation of investors. Foundation builders, I know, is one. I think there's another one that the name has escaped me for the moment, but you are a part of in leading amazing things. Why don't you talk about what you're doing now and how people can become a part of it?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. So today, what I personally focus on is I do a lot of seller finance deals in terms of I do some sub 2 deals. I do seller finance deals. We do a little bit of fix and flip in the markets, as I described. We're in the East Bay and then the Central Valley. What we do with refoundationbuilders.com, that's with Adrian Hernandez, my partner there on that and the mentorship. And we just work with a lot of realtors, real estate agents, brokers, lenders. And we basically bring great guest speakers like you, Michael. And we're basically in the conversation of, not only do you want to be a great earner as a real estate agent or professional, but you also need to be your best client. Yeah. You should be buying some deals. Building a portfolio. Everybody gets into the real estate industry for two things. They want to make a lot of money, and then they think they're going to have a lot of free time.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I agree. Yeah. I want freedom and I want a lot of money. Okay.
Right. And then they get in and they realize, okay, they're going to be glued to their phone 7 days a week. They're going to get interrupted when they're doing family or fun stuff,
Yeah.
whatever. And so we mentor, we coach, we help, we encourage, we show those real estate agents, yes, you can have standards, have a life, do the work, follow a business plan. Basically a plan, not only a plan to make more commission dollars and more revenue, but also a plan to acquire properties, to get that one rental at a time mentality. Mm-hmm. And so we're really proud of the work we do. Squad Up was the other group, and that's kind of on the shelf. We still will do some guest events and things like that. Yeah. But I'm really proud of the work. I'm proud to be associated with Adrian. We bring in great guests like you. We have even with Thatch, we've had Thatch come on and do stuff with us. And we just want to be around, like today too. This was interesting, but back, in those 90s and 2000s, when I described, there was a lot of ego, right? A lot of ego, which is natural. That happens, especially, when you're young, you're having a lot of success. And one of the things I would say that's really shifted for myself today and over the last 10 years is that, being very focused on community, being focused on adding value, right? And so in the Squad Up, in the Foundation Builders, and the stuff that you and I do together on the Friday Financial Wrap Up, the One Rental at a Time community, being associated with Pace Morby and Laura with their Sub 2 group and Flip Me and, all of that, is we've just really got a major focus on contribution, on community, squatting up, helping people, doing good by doing good is really the theme. And I borrow that from Thatch, because Thatch has always talked about that, doing good by doing good, right? Yeah. So just very focused on community and sharing. And thank you for all that you do, Michael, because you're a big part of that also. Meeting you was very timely over the last couple of years in what we're building together. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I appreciate every Friday together. It's a highlight of my week. Love being a part of everything you're doing. Why don't you give the website one more time that you and Adrian have?
refoundationbuilders.com. RE like real estate. So refoundationbuilders.com. People can also find me if you're curious about deals. You can email me ty@tylg.com. They can go to the tylg.com website. There's a small little bio, but then there's a submission form. So a lot of people have deals and they're not sure. They have leads or suspects and they're not really sure. Even if it's not something that we're going to do together, I'm happy to look at them. I'll give you feedback here. Look for this, look for that. Watch Michael's video from last week, from Wednesday. Like I love being in these conversations. It's what I live for. It's, it's exciting and fun for me to be able to share. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. If you want a sample of what you'll get if you join RE Foundation Builders, we did a 60-minute mastermind and I posted it on my channel. Thank you for sending it. I mean, we went deep. We went into buy box and what ifs and all of these things. And again, if you watch that, it could change your life. So you're doing some really amazing stuff. So I want to thank you for this again. And you have a great Instagram page too. We got to talk about that.
Yeah. So you can on Instagram, Instagram, TY_LG.
There you go.
So very, very simple. I'm easy to find. And you'll see me reposting a lot of Michael's stuff. We got such a good community, Michael. We really do. We've got a great community and it continues to grow. So I can't wait for us to start doing live events together.
Yes.
We've been talking about it. We're still in the planning and the works, but I would say absolutely follow Michael, follow myself, follow Adrian. We want everybody who's watching this to be a part of our community. So we love sharing and giving. So
yeah, very cool. Thank you very much for doing this Sunday morning. Greatly appreciate it. I'm glad we got this done. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Mike.